All right, so sales track review from last week. What is the goals of our first appointment? Well, the goal is getting the prospects on the same page with the same goals in mind, get the prospects saying yes and getting them to agree, building rapport, getting the credible information you need to accurately run their numbers. So where we left off last week was we had sat down with the client, we had pulled ourselves into we've sat them down, we've positioned ourselves correctly, we verified that the proper people are at the table, all of the decision makers, they have their materials in hand, they did their homework, they are ready to move on the analysis appointment. All right. I'm having a little bit of a lag with the computer, so I do apologize about that. So let me move on to the next. So review where we left off. Great. Thanks for putting that together. Let's dive right in and let's get started. Set the tone. Give them answers. Get them answering you. Whoever is speaking is the one that's in control. What are your expectations for this meeting? What are you hoping to get out of this meeting? What you are looking for there is to get an idea or get a clue of what the clients have discussed, if there's any open hole areas that they are not real confident in. What is it, what are you looking for out of this? What was your assumption coming into this appointment? What type of information are you looking for here? Whoever is asking the questions is in control. So they want control. Your clients always want control. To get a better understanding of how all of this works, that's why the client is looking for that sense of control inside of your process. Or for you to explain how it works. Your clients will continually try to sidetrack or derail your sales process. If they come back with this question, like you say, what do you expect? And they say to get a better understanding of how all this works, or for you to explain how all this works, please do me a favor. Stay on page with your training. One of the biggest mistakes that I see individuals make is they hear those two questions, and what ends up happening is a lot of agents launch into a verbal explanation at this point. If you do this, if you try to walk through a verbal explanation, you're going to derail the sale. You may actually end the sale. Stay in control of the prospect, stay in control of the sale. And the best way to do that is to redirect or not get flustered by that question. You can say, great, that is why we're sitting down, is to give you a better understanding of the product. And you could go into something like, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, remember we're going to go through a short 10 to 15 minute questionnaire. And when we complete that and determine when you qualify for the program, I will be able to show you how the program works for you. This is typically a 2-meeting process. You may do it in a 1 meeting, but I always find it's way too much information for 1 meeting. That's been my experience, but I do know agents that have done the analysis and closed the deal in the same appointment. So that's really up to you how much information you think you can disseminate to the client and get them to understand and get them on board with. Our meeting today is for one purpose, of getting the necessary information we need to determine your eligibility for the program and for me to be able to produce your results report. Once I've gathered that information, we will set a second meeting to review that information and the program details. Remember, please remember, you have a process. You don't have to bow and bend to the client. If you go into a mortgage office, apply for a loan, they give you a process. If you go to an insurance agent, you're looking to pick up annuities, IULs, whole life, whatever that is, they have a process that they take you through. In fact, if you go to get your car serviced somewhere, there is a process that they take you through, and they do not deviate from that process. That is what I really want to get across to you is practice these 6 steps of sales track, practice setting your appointment in stone, which is the 6th step, and then move into your your first appointment, and go through the training pieces, the basics that are involved in there to stay in control of that situation. Now, what you want to do right now is you want to move the process forward. So dive right into the first frame of the analysis. You don't want to hesitate. If they have all the materials there, they've told you to gain a better understanding, great. We're going to go through a questionnaire so we can get your the numbers we need to run your analysis. And so let's just dive right in and let's go. Now take your time with this and use it as an opportunity to build trust and build rapport. Don't just go line by line and say, okay, okay, okay. Interject into each line. It may take you more than 15 minutes, but you're going to learn a lot more about the client, and you're going to establish much more of a rapport and a sense of trust with the client. Ask probing questions that do not appear on the analysis. So what do I mean that? Well, work from accurate documents. Do you have your most current mortgage statement, or can we access your account online? The more accurate information you obtain throughout the process, the more accurate your analysis report will be. Now, I know a lot of people like to say, oh, you don't have to put all that together. Just give me some round average numbers. Just, what do you think is your scenario with your mortgage interest rate? Try to get away from guessing, especially if you're setting an appointment with the client. In that first appointment, you should have asked them or told them, given them a worksheet, told them the materials that they're going to need to have together, prepared, and ready prior to you arriving at that first appointment. So when you made the appointment, you set it all up, you called it confirmed, that's when you would be telling the client, you're going to need your mortgage statement, you're going to need your balance, you're going to need interest rate, your monthly payment with taxes and insurance if that's included. You're going to need the same on your credit cards, balance, interest rate, minimum monthly payment, and you're going to need the same on your income. So the more accurate this information is, if they can supply source documents, 2 things. Number 1, you're not going to be guessing at all, so the program's just going to accept the information because it's going to be accurate. Number 2, you're going to have documents to physically work off of. So here's where you start asking questions that maybe are not on the analysis, but to build rapport. I see your current balance, $184,283.13. How long have you lived here? Why do you want to know how long somebody has lived there? Well, it falls into where did you live before? Or they could say, I've lived here all my life, or we've been in this house for the last 20 years. Oh, really? Why did you decide to stay here? Or where did you come from before you bought this house? Were you still living in this area? Why did you decide to buy this house? How long are you planning on staying in this home? These are all questions that are going to fill out the picture for you. If some guy comes back and says, we've lived here for a year and a half and we're planning on selling it next year and moving into another house or moving to another location, the analysis, it's not saying the analysis will not still work or will not still benefit them, but you're going to have to look at what their savings would look like in that first year if that's all the longer they're going to stay there. If they say, we've lived here for the last 20 years, we raised our kids, this is where we're staying, you just move on. These are all rapport building questions. Be intentional, be specific. I see your interest rate is 5.25%. Wow, now that's an excellent rate. Is that the rate you received when you purchased the home? There's a good question. Was that rate a result of a refinance? Another great question. Do you remember how much money you paid in total closing costs to get that rate? I want you all to make note of that very last question, because here's something we fail to remember many times. So many people say, well, the price of the program, they balk at the price of the program. The average refinance, if you look over their docs, the average $150,000 to $160,000 refinance is going to run anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 in fees. In either way you shake that, with the refinance, you are adding new interest to that loan. You are recasting that loan. And yeah, you got a better interest rate, but you paid $4,000 to $7,000 for that interest rate. What is the highest price of our program? $3,750. Now, what if you could take a 30-year mortgage at 5.25%, run the analysis, and let's just say you pay it off in 15 years. That would be the same thing as paying 2.75%, 2.35%, 2.375% interest over the course of the mortgage. So I want you to really think about this, especially when you have objections, too good to be true, the price of the product. This is also what your first 6 lessons of sales track is all about, is vetting out how serious is the client. You know, well, this sounds too good to be true. Well, I thought you said you were looking for a solution to get out of debt. Well, yeah, I am. Okay, well, great. Let's set an appointment so we can run your analysis and show you how this will work and that it is not too good to be true. Well, you know, $3,500, that's a lot of money for the product. Well, when we were doing your analysis, you let me know that this mortgage is a refinance. And we talked about that, and on the refinance, you spent about $4,000 to $5,000 in refinance fees and recast your loan out to 30. What I'm trying to tell you is we'll pay it off in 15 without ever having to refinance, and you're going to pay less money to my company to buy the product than you would to refinance the program. So I'm trying to pull this in a fashion where you all can pull this in a very full circle and understand that those 6 steps are just your track to run on. Once you get in their home or they're at your house or you're doing this on a web conference, this is where you use that analysis to get them saying yes, and this is where you get that analysis to build rapport with that client and dig deeper with the client and find out more about who you're actually working with. Always be looking for more from your client, more information, a deeper connection. Your current monthly payment is $1,199.10, excluding taxes and insurance. I see you currently have taxes and insurance included, not included in your current monthly payment. Why is that? Well, why would we ask that question? Well, if someone is not escrowing or not including their taxes and insurance, they say, well, no, I don't have my taxes and insurance included in my payment. It's just principal and interest. You can always say to them, well, why did you decide to do that? And that's going to tell you something about the client. Well, you know, my money, when I have it in escrow, it's not working for me. I'd rather have my money in my savings account. I'd rather have it in my investments. Or, you know what, I'd rather use that money throughout the year to help pay down debt, and I already know how much money I pay in tax, and I put away a little bit each month to make sure I've got that in tax. Or, you know, I have a great control of my finances. I just want to see what the program will do to reduce it. I've never had a problem with paying my taxes. I've never put taxes and insurances in my mortgage. This is telling you a lot about the client. The client may come back and say, yeah, my taxes are included. Just ask them, why did you decide to do that? Well, it just makes it easier for me. Well, what you're finding out from 2 sides, one person has really good control of their finances, doesn't mind the meticulous work, doesn't mind they have to save up the money, doesn't mind they're going to have to cut a check and pay the taxes. The other person is saying, I just want everything done very simply. They may even come back and go, you know, one year I had a mortgage and I didn't have taxes and insurance. I've actually heard this before. And at the end of the year, I didn't have the money to pay the taxes. I had to actually put it on my credit card, and that actually put me in a worse situation than I was already in. I had another client at one time tell me they forgot to pay their taxes. They had done a refinance. The mortgage prior to that had taxes and insurance. This one did not. And they physically forgot to pay their taxes. What you're really trying to do with your client throughout this process, through the analysis, and remember the analysis should be matter of fact, but interjected with pieces. Like if the guy says, you know, he's got, you know, $15,000 on his credit card. Well, Wow, that's a lot. Did you go on vacation? Would you? Oh, no, it's just a bunch of stuff. Or it could be, I refurbished my boat. I refurbished my car. Really? What kind of car is it? What kind of boat is it? Every one of these situations when you're doing the analysis, I found for myself where I built the greatest rapport with my clients was when I was going through the analysis. Everything that you're saying, everything that you're doing should flow naturally and matter-of-factly. That doesn't mean you should be flat and bland and uninterested. You should show some conviction, show a sense of excitement that you know that what you're doing for them is good, that this isn't a drudgery of a job for you. If your prospect is rather to the point or exhibits any uneasiness with your questioning, just move on and don't probe so deep. Just back up a little bit. They may feel like you are asking them questions that are just running a little bit too deep for them. Trust your journey. Trust doesn't just happen. It is something that is accumulated. Trust is something that is built over a period of time. Get them to open up and discuss things beyond yes and no. Get inside their world, gain a better understanding of who they are and what is important to them. So why did you all decide to move into this neighborhood? Why did you all decide to buy this particular house? So when you refinanced last year, what was the reason you refinanced? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Why did you decide to go the route of refinancing? In all of your questions, ask them very open-ended as best to your result as you can. I mean, if you're asking about their interest rate, that's pretty much a closed-ended question. But every other question you're asking them, ask them as open-ended questions so you get more and more information out of the client. Get them talking in a very relaxed manner, and they will absolutely give you the information you need to close them. Have them view you personally as an individual. Make yourself personal. Remember, people buy from people they like and trust. They buy with emotion. They back it up with logic. Have them view you personally. Talk about your kids when you first sit down. Talk about your job. Talk about where you live. Talk about who you are. If you go to church, what church do you go to? If you go to the same church, if you don't go to church, whatever that looks like, any bridge that you can build with this client to relate to them, to be relatable to them, to have them view you as something more than a salesman, as somebody that truly wants to help them. You want them to view you personally and individually as a friend, not as just somebody trying to sell them something. You need their trust and you need their buy-in. If you're just throwing it up against the wall and seeing what sticks, chances are you're not going to get much trust and you're not going to get much buy-in. Make sure they understand. Some prospects get confused with biweekly and semi-monthly. This is an important item for the program. Be sure you define this for them. And there's other areas they may get confused. Be patient with your client. Remember, you do this as the expert. They're doing this, trying to find a solution, a way out of debt. They are looking to you as the individual to lead them, to guide them, to give them the proper information. A good example of explaining biweekly would mean typically you receive a check every other Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday on a regular basis. Semi-monthly, you receive a paycheck 2 times a month only, typically on the 5th and the 20th, 15th and the 30th, 1st and the 15th, something along those lines. There's other areas. Some people don't know the word escrow. They don't know what that means. So you may have to say, on your mortgage payment, is that principal and interest, taxes, and insurance included? This is the other reason that you want source documents. When you get to credit cards, it could be questions like, is this an introductory rate that you have on the credit card, or is this the rate that your credit card is going to be? We are almost finished here. Last question for the questionnaire. At the end of the month, after all your bills are paid, how much money would you say is left over? At the end of the month, after all your bills are paid, food and gasoline is purchased, how much money do you usually have left in checking? How much money do you usually have left to spend at your discretion? How much money do you have remaining that is not earmarked for some other purpose This would be the money that if you wanted to go out to dinner, you would use that. If you wanted to buy your wife a little gift that she didn't anticipate, you would use that. If you wanted to splurge a little bit on yourself, this would be that money. What we're looking for in discretionary income is money that is not earmarked in another direction at this time. Now, wait, I want to go back real quick. Can we find discretionary income? Well, yes, we can. We can find discretionary income very easily. If a person has multiple debts, the chances of finding discretionary income are pretty easy. Most people nowadays that have multiple debts don't really have a plan to get out of debt, but most people are sending a little bit of additional money each month to each one of their debts to try to offset the amount of interest they're going to be paying and that type of scenario. So you remember I asked the question when we got to credit cards, I said, you know, when it comes to your credit cards, you're going to ask them the question, what is your minimum monthly payment? And they'll say, you know, $75. Well, I would always ask the question here, is that the minimum payment that is required on the statement you receive? And if you have the statement, you'll know that. Or are you just sending $75 a month? They may very well come back, or if you have the statement and say, no, on the statement it says $35 a month, but I double that. I send them an extra $35 every month. So what you would do on your analysis is put $35 in the analysis and then write $35 down on a piece of paper and put additional to Visa or whatever it was. By the time you go through their entire analysis, if they're sending extra money to each one of these debts, put the minimum amount required by the lender in the analysis, and whatever additional amount, write it on a little side sheet of paper, write what credit card, what debt that additional money was going to. So when you get down to this discretionary income and they say, you know, at the end of the month we have nothing left, you can say, well, listen, you have 5 credit cards here. You told me on each one of them you're paying an extra $25 a month. I'll just use a round number to make it easy. And here's your debts. Here's the extra $25. Here's what you usually pay on each one. That extra $25 that you're sending to each one of these debts, in the system, we are going to put the minimum payment required by the lender. That extra $25 now is discretionary income to you. So if you have 5 debts and you are sending an extra $25 to each debt, that means you have $125 of discretionary income, even if at the end of the month, the way you're doing things right now, you're at 0, because what we're going to have you do is make the minimum payment to each one. The system is going to tell you where is the best place to devote that $125 a month that you're spreading out over 5 credit cards. Now, you're not trying to tell them they don't have a good plan. You're not trying to tell them it's not a good idea to send extra money to debt. What you're telling them, what you want to define for them, is that our program is mathematical and it will pick the debt mathematically, and understanding your income and your expenses, it will give you to the exact penny the amount of additional money that you are to send to whatever required debt. Be conservative. This is another thing. I always tell people, don't puff up their discretionary income, because if they don't get the results that you have designated in that analysis, that's not going to make you look good. That's not going to make us look good. So I would like you to be conservative here. I'd rather you give a worst case scenario than a best case scenario. You and I can both agree that if we use a worst case scenario and you see the advantage of our program, we can always improve on that scenario and the results, correct? And I'm telling you, I've never had anybody come back and say to me, no, we can't agree on that. No, if you're giving me your worst case scenario of how much money you have left over, you're giving me accurate numbers on your debt, worst case scenario on income, and I come out showing you a 28-year mortgage is going to be paid off in 10 years, that is a worst case scenario for you, but how does that make that feel to you? You know you can improve on those results. Sonia came in and said that the system takes some of the emotion away from the process. And that is absolutely true, but I've seen clients get emotional while they are going through an analysis. And I can't say whether that's a positive or a negative. Now, if they're having a panic attack, that's a negative. But I've seen people, husbands, wives, significant others, actually start crying. I can't believe we're in this much debt. There is a perfect opportunity for you to be that advocate and reach your hand out and say, look, we're right in the middle of this. Let's find out what it is. Maybe at the end of this, we have a great solution for you that'll be a great weight off of your chest and a great relief of burden where you're concerned at this particular moment. Make sure you have what you need. And what I'm saying here is after you've filled everything out, now if you're one of these individuals that's going to do your analysis and try to close it in one appointment, the next couple screens probably are not going to apply to you. But this is why I always did it in a 2-appointment process. What I would always do is say, okay, for a moment here, I just need to check some numbers. I need to make sure I have everything I need. If I'm sitting down with them, I would turn the computer away for a moment so I could look at it, or I'd say, hey, if you need to go check on the dog or the cat or the kids, or, you know, that phone that rang, if you need to answer that, give me just a couple minutes here. I just want to make sure what I need, that I have everything I need. And what you're really looking for is that you have everything you need to generate that analysis. Now, you may decide, you know what, I've been here for a half hour. I've got the analysis. I'm just going to push forward. But I'm telling you, with that much information, most people do not make the decision on that appointment. That's just been my experience. Now, if you turn it away from them, go through it, it does generate a good report, then you know you have everything you need to come back for a second appointment, to do a second web conference. And all you tell the client is, look, I have all the information I need here to produce the analysis results. I'm going to take this information back, dot the I's, cross the T's. If I do come up with something that doesn't make sense or is not calculating, I want to know that I can reach out to you. What is the best time to give you a call? I'm going to be reviewing this information tomorrow. So if I need any additional information, what is the best number for me to reach out and get in touch with you? But typically, you should already know it's going to produce an analysis. Let's say it produces 10 years, 12 years, 13 years. Maybe you want to leave that appointment with, I have everything I need. Now, I just want to ask you a question. If we could pay this 30 years of debt off, and I don't know, let's say 15 years, you know, overshoot a little bit higher than what the analysis is, would there be any reason you wouldn't want to move forward with this program? And if they say, well, no, absolutely not, well, you already know you have a 12 to 13-year analysis. So you're going to way under-promise and over-deliver for this client. Does it look realistic? Make sure they're not spending more money than they make each month. If there's a negative for living expenses, if you have a two-family home and they have $400 in living expenses, then typically they're probably upside down, or they're not telling you about all of their income. So make sure you look at that analysis before you leave the summary page and make sure there's enough money in there for the bills. There's enough money in there, for what we call variable expenses or their utilities or living expenses. There's enough money to pay their bills, and there's some discretionary income left over. If they are spending more than they make, then they are upside down, and the program will not assist them. The program is all math, no fairy dust, and no magic. If they are spending more than they make, they need to curb their spending, or they need financial counseling, not a program. Really think about that with your client. You're not just trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You want to serve your client, as we have said through all of these lessons. You want to make sure that the numbers they're giving you look realistic. You want to make sure you look at the summary and make sure that there's enough money there to pay the living expenses with the bills, with some discretionary income. If something doesn't look right, go back and ask them, now this isn't coming out right for me, so I just want to ask, is that all the income you have, or do you have some other income that you're not telling me about? You may even want to back that up with, we don't report to any government agencies, we're not tied in with anybody, we're a privately held company. So if you're making some money under the table, if you're receiving some money as a stipends or something like that, you want to put it into this analysis, because that is a more realistic picture of what it is that you are doing with your current situation and all of your your financial situations, your goals, and what you are trying to achieve. Set your next appointment. In my opinion, do not show them the analysis in their first appointment. If you're doing it on a web conference, please do not send them a copy of the analysis. Your leverage for that second appointment is you have the results. If you, in that first appointment, have already spent an hour with them and you try to close the deal, it's going to be a long night. They're not going to make the decision. They're going to say they need to think about it. You're going to do all of your tie downs of what do you need to think about. You're going to go through your tie downs. You're going to exhaust them. Chances are, my own opinion, they're not going to make the decision. If you tell them I have everything that I need and I'm going back to dot the I's, cross the T's, and I need to set a second appointment with you, when would be the best day? Use your setting appointment in stone format. So you know they'll show up and say, in this second appointment, what we're going to do is we're going to go over your results. We're going to go over what we found from this. So I would like both of you present. If there was 2 people in the room, I'd like both of you are present for that appointment. And then we're going to review your results so you can see how this program will work with you. Close the appointment by scheduling your next appointment. Use the same method for setting your second appointment as used for setting your initial appointment in stone. So what is the next step? Okay, great. I have all the information I need. I'll take this information back to my office and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure I'm dotting the I's and crossing the T's to assure your eligibility and the best solution for you given your current situation. If I have any questions between now and our next meeting, may I feel free to call you. Let them answer. Likewise, you feel free to do the same with me, okay? Verify phone numbers with each other again. Just make sure it's the best number. Let's go ahead and set up our next meeting, our next appointment, and do that as an appointment in stone. All right. Now, when we meet again, I'm going to know if you qualify for the program and exactly what that will look like for you. If I can, let's say, save you 10 years off of your current situation and let's say $50,000 of future interest, remember, you've already seen the analysis, so you want to go a little bit higher than what the analysis says. Is there any reason you would not want to move forward with me and the Worth account? Or on our next meeting, if you qualify for the program and can see the value benefit to you, would there be any reason you would not absolutely have to have this program as part of your financial backing? This system works, people. People that have been successful with it follow the 6 steps of sales track. They follow these procedures of building rapport. If there's anything I want you to take away from tonight, that is your analysis is not just a quick run through to get a bunch of questions answered. It is a great way to build rapport with your client. The second thing I would hinder on here is people are not going to buy from you if they don't like and trust you. So be very courteous, be very prompt on your meeting times, do what you say what you're going to do, follow through, follow up with your clients, be a good representative of yourself, and be a good representative of the company. Next week, we're going to discuss some questions that you may get on your first appointment. We're going to get into some meat. This will be more like of overcoming objections. We will discuss questions that may arise at the end of your first appointment and how to respond and position your answers to direct your prospect professionally and confidently. And that's what we're all looking to try to do. No one hit the three-point winning shot after picking up a basketball for the first time, and no one created a masterpiece by throwing paint on a canvas unless it was Jackson Pollock. Do understand without a doubt with your clients and with yourself, be patient. Trust your training, trust your systems, be patient with your client, be patient with yourself. If you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to reach out to me or worse, support. Or what I truly prefer is whoever recruited you, reach out to them directly, see if they can answer the question for you. If they cannot, have them call in and ask the question so we can down train them so they can train you better. The best way to communicate with me is via email or via text messaging. If you leave me a voicemail, I get so many voicemails, I've actually forgot or overlooked a couple voicemails last week. So if you need to get in touch with me and you believe that I am the point of contact, then you can send me an email or text. But people, please, I had this situation already arise this week. If you have a question, you think you have a big player, you think you have a, somebody that's on the line, and you want to know what are your next steps, go to your upline first. Find out from your upline what they would do next. Don't just bypass your upline. You should be in constant communication with your upline if you are working this business. Let me read this question that I just got here. Yeah, one point I did want to bring up at the end, this was brought up by Ralph Williams. If somebody has multiple debt and they have no discretionary income, that doesn't necessarily mean the program won't work for them. Run their numbers anyway, because chances are one or two of those debts are going to pay off over a year or 2 year or 3 or 4 year period. And then the program is going to pick up the money that they were spending on that debt, and it's going to direct that money towards discretionary income. So what I want you to remember is the key to this business. The key is building rapport and trust and getting their numbers to run an analysis. You cannot do anything with the client until you have run their analysis. Next week, I'm going to get Darlene and Joan on the phone, since we are going over overcoming objections, or actually, questions that may occur and how we handle these questions. I always appreciate Joan being on the call, Darlene being on the call. They're actually on the call this evening. I want to thank everybody that's been a part of this mission, this goal to buy America back one family at a time. I want to thank you for your dedication. I want to thank you for always being on the calls. I want to thank you for your efforts. I want to thank you for utilizing the system. If you're somebody that owns the program, I want to thank you for getting out there and making sales. But follow the system and become very close with your upline. Don't try to sidetrack your upline. If you think you've got something going on and you know your upline is working, reach out to them directly, discuss it. This excites your upline as well. Your upline needs that bolstering feeling every now and then, just like you do. So let's all come together. Let's all work together. Let's make 2018 the best year that we've ever had. Next week, we'll hear from Darlene, Joan, myself, and we'll be going over questions that may be asked during your second appointment. But for now, from everybody here at Worth Unlimited, from the bottom to the top, let's get out there and do something big. Let's get out there and do something right. But let's, at the very least, let's get out there and do something big right now. This is Max Saunders saying bye-bye for now.